Hello, ladies. I'm really excited to have you both here today. As we launched our new networking nutritionist group, we asked folks who they wanted to have come in and do interviews and talk about their work, and you were both high up on the list. So I'm glad that we could make this happen. For everyone who is joining who might not be familiar with these two ladies, let me introduce them quickly. So we've got Briana, you're on the left, maybe give a little wave or something so we know who is who. Briana is a certified nutritional practitioner. She specializes in pediatrics, and she's the author of the #1 best-selling cookbook, Get Naked in the Kitchen, Healthy Recipes That Are Proud to Bear It All, and a leading health and wellness speaker. She is the co-founder of Little Warrior Nutrition, an e-commerce business that helps families nourish their little warriors to their full potential through nutrient-dense food powders and high-quality supplements. Briana received her Bachelor of Business Administration degree at Wilfrid Laurier University and started her career as a business strategy consultant. She then received her diploma in applied holistic nutrition from the Institute of Holistic Nutrition, where she later taught professional skills and professional practice. Among others, Briana has appeared on The Morning Show, Rogers TV, Local Notes, and News Talk 1010. She also has been featured in various publications, including Notable, Zoomer, ODA Journal, Fitness Elite Magazine, and News Now. Briana is best known for her passion and energy and loves getting messy in the kitchen with her kids. So for all of you who were not familiar with Briana now, you know a whole bunch about her now. And then the other fabulous lady who's joining us is Esther Epp. And if you want to give a little wave, yeah. Esther is also a nutritionist. Since 2005, Esther has specialized in wellness through lifestyle, diet, and exercise as an integral part of addressing the needs of her clients. As an honors graduate of health science and kinesiology from York University, Esther is educated in the science of the body and movement. Her interest in holistic living led her to earn her designation as a certified nutritional practitioner from the Institute of Holistic Nutrition, where she once taught professional skills development. She's the co-founder of Little Warrior Nutrition, an e-commerce business, again, that helps families nourish their little warriors to their full potential. And through her private practice, public speaking, and writing engagements, Esther's passion for clean living is evident. Through her passion for research in pediatric functional nutrition, Esther empowers families to thrive with optimal nutrition. Thank you again, ladies, for joining us. We've got a bunch of stuff lined up for the next little bit. We have some things to direct our conversation, questions that were submitted in advance. But if anyone is popping on and watching, you're welcome to throw some questions into the chat as well, and we can react to those and throw them in at the end of our conversation. All right, so welcome again, ladies. How are you doing today?
Great.
Amazing.
Wonderful. It's I'm assuming it's beautiful where you are.
It's very lovely today.
Very good. So we'll jump right into it. Your business started out with a group on Facebook, is that correct?
Yep. And a Shopify store.
A Shopify store, okay. So what prompted you to begin with that group and that store in the first place?
I think it was, I guess, cutting corners. But, you know, I think that when you make the right decisions in business, they usually come down to the fact that you've made them before and they work, so you're repeating them, or you've made mistakes before, so you're avoiding making those mistakes, or you somehow just get lucky. I think it was a bit of a combination of things, but truthfully, Esther and I both worked on a brand called The Naked Label before. And one of the things that we realized there was that you can easily fry your brain trying to be on all social media platforms all at one time. So there was a considerable amount of time spent there trying to make sure that every social media platform had regular content. There was a newsletter happening regularly. There was regular blog information, blog articles and stuff going up. And so it takes a significant amount of time to manage that when you're a really small team. And I think that, people, when they're starting out, have this impression that they need to be on everything. And then when we started out, we had this vision to just be as lean as we possibly could, to learn from mistakes that we were making and to try to make sure that the mistakes that we're making were, you know, smaller, so that we could kind of learn as we went, rather than spend all of this time building out all the social media platforms. We then asked ourselves, if we were going to be on one platform, if we were just going to do one, which one would allow us to create the most value for our customers and build a relationship with them, because we were selling supplements on a store. And if you're posting a website online, you have to draw traffic to it. And then why are people going to buy from you if they have no idea who you are? And you can build that over time with branding, but building a trusting relationship with someone is really the best way to do that. And so we just had identified that if we went on to Facebook and created a group specifically, not a page, but a group, it would give us the opportunity to build a relationship with these customers. And so we didn't actually go on there and post content. We literally created this group and we invited people to ask questions, and then we answered questions. So sometimes they had absolutely nothing to do with the products that we were selling. We just answered questions that people had. And in doing so, we created a lot of value for people. We built a trusting relationship with them. Then they were interested in purchasing from us. And sometimes they asked questions that were relevant to the products that we sold. And so we were able to direct them to those products in that situation. So based on the intention that we had for the business, I think it worked out to be a really great strategy. In fact, even today, it is the #1 driver of revenue, and has always been the #1 driver of revenue in our business, is that Facebook group. And we've dabbled in other forms of advertising and marketing. And I think that we will be pursuing that more going forward as well, other forms. But to date, that has been the greatest.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And I think just what Brie was saying in terms of adding value, the reciprocal benefit became that we also could see really who our niche market was and what it was that they wanted, or what it was that they were potentially missing. And so that really helped to inform the decisions that we were making in our business in terms of which direction. We initially just really wanted to create something that would be helpful. We were both with our first littles at the time, right? And so we had both gone through this pregnancy experience and had done a ton of research ourselves in terms of optimal nutrition and how to support that through diet first, and then to bring supplements along. And so we were just on fire with a bunch of information that we were really excited about. And I think our passion for that really showed. And then another strategy was really just to create, when Brie talked about something that was super lean, we didn't have a ton of we just had best in class. So different strategies to prove to our clients that we knew exactly why we chose this particular supplement to represent, for example, our prenatal, and not all of these other. And then Brie had this incredible idea to do this 200 or more hour research on all of the different other prenatals, but we wanted to prove to our group that we were prepared to do the research, and also then show them these are all the things that you don't necessarily want. And so through this education and empowerment piece, we were able to continually show them that we have their best interests at heart, and that we value them, and that these are products and things that we are taking ourselves, not just selling. So I think that authentic connection really was a big piece of it as well.
Yeah. So the idea of keeping your business very lean and choosing only best in class to sell, it's quite unique. And that freaks a lot of people out. I know even within our group, I've heard that, like, I don't want to get too specific. I'm worried that I'm going to be losing clients or losing customers. What would you say to those folks who are thinking about identifying and narrowing down their niche? If there's other tips besides staying lean that you'd be able to offer to them?
That's so important. It was actually one of my most passionate topics that I talked about in professional practice and teaching that course. And Esther knows this is like my big thing. You can't, people, I think it's the biggest mistake that nutritionists make when they go out into the world is they think that they need to be broad. And so in doing that, whether you're selling products or you're selling a service, the idea, they think that, well, if I appeal to more people and if I can service and support more people, then that will be good for business. But it's just not how the world works unless you're a very, very, very large organization that does service many, many people. But even then they have very specific target marketing. But I would argue that 99%, if not more, of the people graduating who are nutritionists who are looking to build a business need to be focusing on niche marketing. And the thing that you need to be thinking about is that it's not about, so the consulting that I used to do in the past was in customer-centric marketing. And so the concept behind that is that we would essentially get to know the customer intimately so that we could be their voice at the boardroom table. Because so often what happens, whether you're a small business, a solopreneur, or you're a large business, you make decisions based on your own personal interests. And you don't make decisions based on what your customers actually want. And so you need to identify, and oftentimes this is done through creating something called an ideal client or a customer avatar. There's different names for it, but you need to really identify who is this specific customer that you're supporting. And then you really you have to think about, why do people spend money? So typically in this space, people spend money to solve a problem. Generally, people spend money to solve problems, but then there's also in other spaces, like I would argue in clothing, most people aren't really shirtless and looking to buy another shirt. So more that is, giving them some sort of consumer high. And shopping for that, a new fancy shirt, it makes them feel good. But generally, when you're talking about purchasing nutritional services or products, it's not so much that side of things, it's problem solving. So you need to identify, what problem am I solving for a customer? And then how are you going to solve it? And that's why I often use the example of the weight loss industry, because the weight loss industry nails it. People have this problem, they want to lose weight, they're not happy with how they look, so they go out and they find a solution. If you offer weight loss services, but you don't want to be a niche market, so therefore you just go out there and you say, well, I do all things to all people, then people aren't going to hire you to fix their problem because they don't see you as the expert in the space. So in order for you to be identified as an expert in the space, you have to be a niche market. And that's how people make their purchasing decisions for problem solving today. And so once you identify what problem you're going to solve, and you can, that will always change because you're going to keep asking the question, like, how can I solve this problem better? Or what problems are my customers facing that I can help them solve? So that's always going to change. But you need to be focused on, what problem am I solving and how am I communicating really clearly to my customer that I'm the best solution for their problem. And then they're going to want to spend money with you. And that's kind of the context of niche marketing. And then once you're in that space, then you need to think about not just the added value piece, which is how do I solve their problem, but then the customer experience from start to finish. Because if you're going to solve their problem, they're going to be interested in working with you. But if you offer a really great customer service or customer experience from start to finish, they're going to continue to shop with you or work with you, or they're also going to refer you. And so that is really the key piece. Like, our business was entirely built, which is very unique in product sales and online sales, entirely on word of mouth. So adding value and then word of mouth marketing. And we have one of the higher customer return rates on Shopify. It's a 60% customer return rate.
Wow.
And conversion rate's high. So, but I would say, I would caution that number by saying that because our marketing efforts have mostly been towards this word of mouth marketing, people come into it already interested and quite happy and so on and so forth. So that does skew it a little bit, but generally speaking, sometimes people struggle to even get, 5 and 10%. So we have been identified actually by Shopify as having an extremely high customer return rate. And I think the reason is because we focus very heavily on this customer experience. And so we're constantly having discussions about, well, how can we add value at different points in their experience, and how can we improve their experience? And then you have to balance that with business decisions as well. So you have to balance that with the cost of different things. And truthfully, also, I think the biggest thing is you don't just want to shower people with value. You want to shower people with value that makes sense for them and for your business. And I think that's the mistake that some people make. They're like, well, I'm just going to give them everything. Like, I'm going to give them this, I'm going to give them this, and I'm going to give them it. And then they're just being showered with stuff. But sometimes it's just one or two things that you can do that make all the difference. And then they're going to want to keep purchasing from you going forward.
I have heard you both say before that you're always asking the question, how can I serve this customer better? And you touched on some of these things, Briana, but are you able to give some examples of how that question has directed your business, how you have implemented that in your day-to-day?
You want to talk about our protocols?
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that that we initially started on a phone base. We were answering things via phone and having that conversation with clients. And we would take them off group. But that one of the things that we learned from that was that there were so many questions that were very, very similar. And so we went back to engaging and creating value in groups, so that, because oftentimes one person's question will also be another. But then this idea of creating a foundational protocol for each stage, because we were able to identify after a short while that we could sort of create these packages. We have a pregnancy package, we had a fertility package, or a breastfed baby package that would really support foundationally their particular child at that age or stage. And so we developed a protocol that could go hand in glove with that created so much value, because all of that information was there for them, plus a few things that they may need in terms of if they were dealing with antibiotics or dosing, especially with that, or what they could do with the products on hand that were outside of, say, foundational protocol support. But that was one of the ways that we could really create value for them. And I think that shone through, and people were so appreciative that they could just hop on, depending on which age or stage they were in, and be able to download that as a customer of Little Warrior. Because really the piece that we want to sell is confidence. We want our moms to feel so confident about what they're doing. And that was really, I think we'll get into the course, but it was a really big reason why we created the Nourish Your Little Warrior to Their Full Potential course, because we noticed that there were so many questions around first foods or starting foods, and then so much misinformation around that as well. We could probably spend hours talking about that. But it was really, our goal was like, we just want moms to feel like they've got everything they need and they can ace this. They've got everything they need. And sometimes people are like, what do you mean you're going to give them everything? It's like, we are going to give them absolutely everything, because at the end of the day, it really is that empowerment piece. And then their excitement sells the course, because they can share that with their group. It's like, this is what I'm doing the Warrior way. And, finally, and then they bring this to their pediatrician. Their pediatrician's like, what?
You're feeding chicken liver and egg yolks?
So that's often is like, can you call my doctor? Nope, that's going to be up to you. You can do this. This is what you can do. So I think it's beautifully evolved. I think that to get back to that question is like, how has you honing in on the customer experience and who they are and what their needs are, it has shifted over the ages and stages. And for those that are just graduating as well, when Bree talked about honing in on your niche market, I know that's like, if that part feels really scary, it's like, I want to do cancer, I want to do heart disease, I want to do, But oftentimes it's the thing that brought you into nutrition school that created that hunger and that thirst for yourself, that's probably a really great passion piece to start with. So whether you were healing your own autoimmune disease, or whether you were dealing with, a parent struggle through cancer, or whatever it was that brought you there. And then the other benefit is when you're specializing in something, you can become the expert. And so then you're not finding yourself working on a cancer protocol on Monday, and then you're diving into heart disease on Tuesday. And then you have a client with autoimmune disease on Wednesday, and you're just like, I'm just out of nutrition school. I'm learning the basis of these things. And so, and just like Bree said as well, like as you're evolving and your interests are evolving, and as your clients are evolving, so too can your passions evolve. So you don't have to be just dealing with hormones, say, although it's a really great niche, I have to say.
The thing I was going to say too is, for people who are listening, think about right out of the gate how you're going to make money. Because and then test it, like start somewhere and test that with people. Because I think the mistake that, and again, this is a mistake that I personally made. And so, if I can help other people not make the same mistake, in the previous website and business that I ran, I think that I was constantly spinning my wheels asking, like, how's this business going to make money? Or more money anyway. And I think that what we did differently when we started Little Warrior, which originally was called Superfood Babies, but what we originally did when we started that business is just kind of take a step back and say, we don't have everything figured out. Like, we just launched a Shopify store. It had no logo, no branding, nothing. It was literally their most basic site. We stuck up 5 products. We sold them out of Esther's couch. Literally, it was a couch that flipped up in her living room. And we bought a few boxes and packing tape, and
I still have the picture.
Yeah, we like head on down. We got the first order. I was on vacation in Miami, and the first order, Lori from Alberta, comes in on this Shopify. We're like, what? Somebody we don't know, just and it wasn't our mom. Someone we didn't know placed this order, and we just kind of like couldn't believe it. I could still remember sitting at the computer thinking, yeah. But we geared everything. It's like, we don't have to have a logo. We don't have to have all of our branding figured out. We don't have to have we still don't have a robust blog. We don't have to have a robust blog. You don't have to have a huge following on social media. You don't have to have all of those things and then later figure out how are you going to monetize it and make money in this business.
So good.
And I think that is like a big error that I see a lot of new nutritionists make, is they think, well, I have to have all this fancy branding and I have to look so professional in the world. And then once I have all of it together and I have my fancy video program and I've got all these ebooks and I've got an automated drip system going, like, then I'll promote it. And I think that's the biggest mistake that people make, because you haven't even identified who your customer is and what they want yet. And that's going to evolve. And as I said, we started with 5 products that were made up a prenatal kit, because we had just gone through pregnancy and we were really passionate about that. And then we started this Facebook group and we started interacting with people. And what we realized over time, and we'll probably get into this, but what we realized over time was that we weren't actually solving the right problem. So we still do sell prenatal supplements and so on and so forth. But what we realized in this group is that all of the questions weren't about prenatal. We thought they would be, that we thought that was going to be the group that we would have. And in fact, all the questions were about early childhood nutrition. Mm-hmm. And what we realized with our customers is that once they have to they actually rely on a lot of their, whether they should or shouldn't, but they rely on a lot of their, their advice from their medical doctor, their midwife or whoever during their pregnancy. But once they actually get to the point where they have to feed a child, they realize, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. And it's a very critical time in nutrition where they go out and they have a problem and they need a solution. And so we got so many questions about how do I feed my child? What do I feed my child? This is happening. We're having this reaction. What bottles do you pick? What this do you like? There's so many questions around that. And our business morphed very naturally towards the focus that it is today. And which then later, I think it was it 2 years later, or 2 or 3 years into it, we rebranded. And that was actually when we signed with Random House. When we first signed with Random House, we created our Little Warrior brand as a result of our signing with them. So all of that, like as kind of going into getting the book deal, or building our business, we went from 5 products and a couch. Then we were on like a shelf. And then at one point we were, I think at 70 products, we sold 70 different products on SKU. Mm-hmm. And then now we have like someone else that manages fulfillment and so on and so forth. So it's definitely been a progression, for sure. But I think, I just would suggest that people start lean, try to figure out their niche, ask their customer questions, get to know them really intimately, and figure out what problem that you're going to be able to solve that's going to monetize, that's going to create money for you as a business. And then once you find what that niche is and what that revenue stream is going to be, then you compound on that and go from there. But always kind of start small. That'd be my
I really agree with both of you on that point. It's something that I see a lot of as well. I think because most, maybe even all of us in this industry are helpers. Like, we want to help people. We want to be making that difference. So it's really easy for folks to martyr themselves. And like you were saying, Esther, if you're doing research for 8 hours one day on one topic and then 8 hours the next day on another topic, you're probably not making a living from that. If you're paying yourself, $5 an hour for the work that you're doing, that's not sustainable. So I love that you're really driving that home, to start where you are, start with the things that you love, hone in on what that's going to be, and make sure that you're making money as you go. I do think that's really important. That progress that you, or process, I should say, that you were talking about with communicating with your customers inside your group, that's what led you to create your course, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you want to talk a little bit about the course and kind of what that's all about?
Sure, we both can. Yeah. So it's called Nourish Your Little Warrior to Their Full Potential. And it was a result of a huge deep dive. I think the course came before the book, but it was just as a result of so many people being curious about what to feed. And then we would give value depending on who we were speaking with in group, but it would be about this nutrient. And then we'd share as much as we could in this. And so there was so much information that could be found in the Facebook group that we'd already shared and gleaned and shared for different nutrients. But really it was, how can we create this in a way that would be practical to a mom who is just learning about what nutrients are and how we can feed our children in this new way. And I think the paradigm shift, and one of our main differentiators, is that we look at food in terms of the nutrients that they provide. And I know that sounds kind of like, what do you mean you look at, like, of course, all of us do. But when you're looking at a child that is 6 months old, they have very specific nutrient needs from 6 to 8 months. And then again, different nutrient needs from 9 to 12 months. And through our deep dive into the book, we realized that even the experts that wrote the DRI documents, when they based their decisions on, for example, choline, and why they set the DRI for choline where they did, that decision was based on 2 adult males that were starved of choline and then given choline back into the diet, and then different changes that were happening in their body physiologically. And Briana were like, how does this answer how a mother might need choline in a different way while she's growing her child versus when she's starting to feed her child? So you'll all have to get a copy of the book, because we make a really great case for each nutrient where we believe that they should be based on the research that we found. But the course was really born just to create a practical one-stop shop where families could go from nutrient to nutrient, learn what the optimal amounts were, and then learn, the top 5, in some cases, the top 15 foods that they could really focus on to meet that nutrient need. And if they found, they didn't meet the nutrient need for vitamin A that day, well, they could give cod liver oil at the end of the day. So we really tried to to support our family so that they could look for the most nutrient needs foods first. And then oftentimes when they would feed a food like chicken liver, then they would realize, oh, I've met my need for vitamin A, I've met my need for choline potentially, I've met my need for zinc, I've met my need for iron, which is first and foremost. And so then there was some key foods that, well, if I was just feeding these particular, and if I only have an opportunity in 1 or 2 spoonfuls a day, well, maybe I shouldn't be serving rice crackers then, or like the baby num nums, or so it was like this big shift to not just filling them, but really fueling them. And then the empowerment piece came when we could really get moms electric about, oh my goodness, if I feed my child zinc, then I'm supporting not only their immune system, but then their opportunity to physically grow and develop in the way that their genetic pattern is suggesting they might. And so that was where they really wanted to roll up their sleeves and dive in and say, well, I've got a great window of opportunity. They started talking, our clients were talking about, critical windows of development. And we're like, yes, because that's a thrill to us to take someone that may not know a ton about nutrition, but then now we see some of the clients that we've had from the very beginning, they're going on and they're answering other mothers' questions about things because this lingo is just second hat to them. And so I think we get so much joy of that because we just see how now they're into like their second or third child and they're acing it and then they're bringing other mothers along. So it's really great.
I think too, like a really great question we would always identify is my child getting optimal amounts of X nutrient every day? And we really realized that I think with ourselves first, we couldn't answer that. We thought, okay, well, we have a nutrition background. We specialize in pediatrics now, and we can't answer that question really truthfully for our own children. And then we started realizing that nobody can, including pediatricians. So for example, people will say, and we see this all over the internet now, and it's one of our greatest pet peeves, people will say, iron is very important for early childhood development. Mainly they'll focus on neurological benefits. So we know that iron is important. Most parents know it. Every pediatrician knows it. That's why they recommend infant cereal as a first food, because it's widely known that iron is so critical. So if you decide not to do infant cereal, let's say, for example, so you're like, I'm not going to do infant cereal. I'm not comfortable doing a refined food. So then we would ask, well, do you know if your child's getting optimal amounts of iron every day? Well, I have no freaking clue. And then you go on and you look at these different, you go and look at different websites, for example, and then they'll say, oh, here are foods that contain iron. And almost all of the lists will contain lentils, for example. And then you could say, well, do you know how many lentils, how much lentils a 6-month-old or 7-month-old would need to consume to get optimal amounts of iron? And we're talking in like the number of cups. So it's literally not possible for a child to obtain enough iron from that. And I think that was, that question identifying that was the most important question, I think is what changed our brand and the direction of our business in terms of where we are today, in terms of our book deal, and this came about from constant conversations that we were having with our customers and realizing they literally couldn't answer this question. And that's how that came about, is really identifying that. But that's why we're saying, like, we didn't know that was a thing when we started this.
That's right.
It always just kind of, it evolves. And then you have to ask, like, how can I help? How can I help? How can I help? And then you get to where you end up.
Well, I'm part of your group as well, have been, I think, since almost day one. And I've kind of watched that progression. And recently when you two launched your food line, it just seemed so smart to me. I don't know that's something that I would have come to, but it made so much sense for you to build these products that met so many of those needs and so many of those questions that your customers had. Was there a certain light bulb moment about that where you knew like this was a way to serve your customers better, or was it a whole bunch of factors that came together? What was it that led you in that direction?
We can both remember the day. You're in Esther's basement. Yeah, it was actually a mom. So that's why this is also comes full circle, really.
Yeah.
It was one of our moms who, we had been talking about how important iron was as a nutrient and so forth in group. And we were at the time, because this is going back probably a couple of years now. And we were mostly just talking about how important it is, and then to consume foods high in iron. So we were doing exactly what I just said. Everyone else is doing. That's a bit of our pet peeve, and that's how we evolved. But we had a mom reach out to Esther actually and say, I read this document. It was the Alberta Health
Services.
Yeah, who had put out this document. And they had a chart in their document where they were basically showing in this chart how much of different types of foods that you would need to consume in order for your infant, your child, your baby to be able to meet optimal amounts of iron. And their conclusion was essentially that you had to feed infant cereal, that there was really no other way for you to meet optimal amounts of iron. And they had beef, and they had some other, I can't remember,
it was
lentils, was it?
I think liver was on there as well.
And so anyway, they had a couple of foods on there, and this was said, and the mom basically was saying, like, is this true? Because we were sort of tooting this horn of, let's try to meet our needs nutritionally for our kids from foods first, and not from fortified foods, which is a different form of supplementation. And so that was sort of what we were touting. And so then when this mom sent this then Esther sent it to me, and she's like, what? Is this true? We need to dive into this. And so we started going into the math, and we pulled up the RDA. We read it multiple times in detail, and we figured out how they actually calculated their 7 and 11 milligrams and what percentages they used to get that. And this was just massive light bulb moments going off for us.
And then calculating the absorption rates of certain nutrients.
Yeah. And then literally, I think I was like at a coffee shop at the time, and I drove over, and she was in the basement. I drove over, and we were just sitting there being like, you literally can't do it without chicken liver. And then it was like, we need to sell chicken liver. And there was, at the time, we're like, how can we sell chicken liver? Because all these babies need chicken liver. It's like the kind of the alternative to infant cereal. It's like the natural alternative, food-based alternative to infant cereal. And we had talked about doing a few different ideas. We were tossing around different ideas at the time. But this is probably going back a couple of years. So interestingly, yes, all of this, and that's kind of what started the journey. And then we, through our book, we learned about oysters through our research that we did through the book. We learned about that. Then we learned about iodine. We worked with Dr. Brownstein for our iodine section. And so we learned about kelp and iodine. And so that's how it all developed. But again, going back, it was one of our moms who was just trying to figure out how to live the warrior way and reaching out for guidance. And then us realizing that that there was an opportunity here to help, because then we for a year, we were just trying to tell people, how do you go get chicken liver, and how do you buy high quality chicken liver, and how do you prepare chicken liver, and and all of that stuff. And then people were always coming, this is challenging. It's challenging to find, it's challenging to prepare. And there was just definitely an opportunity to solve a problem. And so that's where we came up with our food.
For those who might not know, did you want to, in a little nutshell, explain what the powders are?
So we basically chose a few of the most nutrient dense in their own particular classes. And in the case of the pasture raised chicken liver, it's cooked in reverse osmosis water and freeze dried. So the process of freeze drying basically locks the nutrients in time. And then we've created a powder. And so it took so many of the barriers away. Not everyone is into ancestral offal eating. And so to get this foreign food into their house and then defrost it and then cook it, that not everyone was up to it, but to create something where they can just take a tablespoon at a time and just add it into the foods that they're cooking or making, or in the adding it to purees, or they're just increasing the nutrient density for their families, basically by adding these nutrient dense foods in. So we have the ironclad, which is the pasture raised chicken liver. We have zinc shield, which is freeze dried, cooked, wild, sustainably grown oysters. And I think a quarter of a teaspoon supplies 3 milligrams of zinc. And that is meeting optionally a nutrient needs from 6 months to 3 years old. And then it jumps to 5 milligrams at 5. But for most, it's just a quarter of a teaspoon a day, which is phenomenal. And then the wild grown kelp. So that is a great source of iodine. We call that iodinomite, iodinomite. And then we have the calcium crusade, which is freeze dried organic kale and collards. And so it's interesting because kale and collards came up to be quite high in calcium, especially when we had that extra absorption rate when we calculated that piece in. So really, we're just trying to offer ways that families can increase nutrient density using foods first. And again, it goes back to that question. So can parents answer that? Can we optimally, is your child getting the optimal amounts of these critical nutrients? And so we want there to be a resounding yes. So
that's wonderful. And I know you mentioned a couple times in the last 40 minutes or so about the book that you have in the works with Random House. And I know many of our members are really curious about publishing. Are you able to share what made you want to pursue writing this book?
Tell the story.
We were coerced into it. No, we're so grateful we're so excited to be working with Random House, and we're so grateful for this opportunity. It was a very good friend of ours, actually. We were helping with her little one, and she had just identified that nobody was really doing what we were doing in terms of really focusing on nutrients. And she also, had identified too, one of the problems I think that we see in the nutrition world, and I'll just say this quick before I continue with the book, because I think it's really important. And I was thinking of it when Esther was talking there, but when it comes to nutrient deficiency, people are shocked in our industry to know that some of the most nutrient deficient children are of holistic nutritionists. And I think that's really shocking for people to hear. But the reason is that children who are typically raised on a lot of foods that are touted for kids are getting fortification. So they're getting nutrients in supplement form through fortification, which isn't the ideal way of obtaining them, but they're getting quite a bit in terms of the nutrients they need. In the holistic world, what we find is that people don't necessarily want to listen to the pediatrician who says, feed your child infant cereal, feed your child fortified milk, feed your child fortified, bread, feed your child fortified cookies, or, these like infant cookies that are fortified with so many nutrients. So then the parents say, well, I don't want to feed all those fortified foods. I'm going to feed whole foods. And then the pediatricians don't know how to actually support them with that. So then they end up going off saying, oh, it's going to be fine. I'm going to feed whole foods. And then you see these kids and they've got this tray, and then they're also really focused on baby-led weaning. So then they've got this tray with like, a couple blueberries and a cucumber and a sliver of sweet potato. And then the parents think, oh, well, they're eating these fruits, these vegetables, these whole foods. So I'm doing the right thing. And then those in our practice, what we would find is those are the most nutrient dense or nutrient deficient children that we see. And so I think that it's really important for people in the nutrition world to start asking the question about nutrient density and is my child meeting optimal amounts? And so that was just my tiny little rant there. But I think that what this friend of ours had identified is that this is a really important topic, both in the holistic community, but just in the community in general, in terms of pediatrics, looking at nutrient density and going at nutrition first. And so as a result, she had said, I'm going to connect you with our publisher, and we said no. We just had babies and like our second, and we're like, I don't have time for that. Are you crazy? And luckily she was very persistent. And then, every time we talk, it's like, I'm going to introduce it. No, thanks. And then eventually, our babies got a little bit older and we felt like we could function as humans and, sort of. I still think we're trying to function as humans on a daily basis. I'm not sure that we figured that part out yet.
I think every parent feels
right.
that.
But luckily she pursued, and we said, yes, that would be great. Put us in touch. And we're so grateful. They loved our concept and our pitch, and here we are today. But I think that, for people who are interested in the publishing world, you really do have to identify what is going to make you different. Why is someone, there's so many books out there. How is your book going to be different than every other book that's out there? And it's no different in terms of differentiating for a book as it is differentiating for a business.
Right.
So you need to identify right out of the gate what is going to make you different. And then if you build a niche around that, whether it's you as a person, like some people build a brand around them as a person. So that is the unique entity, is them. And so then they are the thing that can be sold as a book deal or so on and so forth, their reputation. Otherwise, it's your unique offering to the world. And so we did a good job of identifying that. And as we explained, we used our customers to help us to come to what we eventually kind of became who we are today. And so I think that's the key piece there, is you can't just go out and be like, I'm just going to create a cookbook and then they're going to say yes. So they're only going to say yes. And this is just the honest truth. They're only going to say yes if your book is going to be something that's different from everything else, and it's going to be marketable. So it's unique enough that it's going to sell a lot of copies, or you are someone who has some sort of celebrity status, and therefore you are going to be able to sell a lot of copies. So that's the publishing world.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you for sharing all of that. We did have a couple of questions that came in from group members, so I want to pose those to you. They are touching on some of the things that we've already talked about, but there might be, a little more that we could drill down onto. So the first question that came in was asking if there were certain forms of marketing or advertising that you used to focus in on your niche. Did you employ marketing and advertising in that, or was it all kind of organic?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's been very organic. So at this point, we used our Facebook group. It grew through word of mouth. We have tried a few, we've dabbled a little bit in the Facebook, Instagram advertising world, but I would not say, some people we've talked to and they seem to hit it out of the park in that world. Truthfully, we have not. It also hasn't been a very, it hasn't been a big focus. I think that now that we have our own branded product line, it will be more of a focus for us going forward. So to be determined on that avenue. So yeah, mostly it was word of mouth that we focus on from that perspective. And I think that if you have happy customers, then they're going to want to talk about you. So I think that's always something that should be, and when word of mouth is the cheapest form of marketing. Because you're not paying them to do it. They're just happy to spread the word and tell everybody about you. So it really is the cheapest form of marketing. And in order to capitalize on that, you have to have a really great customer experience, and you have to have happy customers. And you have to love servicing them.
Second question that came in was that you recently launched this food line. Is there anything you wish you'd known before you started that would have saved you headaches?
There's always stuff that we wish we knew. Every day you're learning. I mean, we had to get organic certification standards. We had to get, certification with sustainable, the ocean-wise sustainability. So you're trying to figure out that. Right now we're looking to launch into the US. So, we are learning all of that, and you're constantly learning. So sure, it would be great to have known all of these things initially. But that's just not how it works. You're just learning as you go. I think that finding really great people that can mentor you.
I was going to say that.
is so important. We have some really great friends who have been incredibly supportive to us. And then I think on the flip side of that, if you're able to give back, it doesn't always have to be to those specific people. I think just having a mentality, you know, Marie Folio, she kind of had this concept one time that she talked about that I thought was really brilliant. It was like this concept of a water fountain. And it's this kind of idea that like all the water droplets sort of go into the bottom of the fountain. And then what pushes all the droplets above it up is the people at the bottom. So you're just sort of adding value. And then eventually you kind of spew out the top of the fountain. And so I think that if people look at things as always like, how can I get something from people?
They can feel that.
Yeah, people can feel that. But I think that you can just be a giving person. It doesn't always have to be directly back to that specific person necessarily. You can still have gratitude for someone giving you help or advice or whatever. But if you have this giving mentality, like, how can I mentor someone? Or like we try to take on co-op students and so on and so forth. So there's different ways that you can give back, doing a talk like this, whatever it may be. And then I feel like, you know, the universe works in its magical ways. And then people that you need who are willing to support you, who have blazed the trail ahead of you, are willing to kind of help and give you, you know, even if it's just jumping on a quick phone call and answering a few questions or what have you. So I definitely think that reciprocity piece is key.
Yeah, I love that. And that's definitely a huge core aspect of our group with Networking Nutritionists, is just that idea that, you know, the universe does work in these magical ways, and together, if we're all lifting each other up, we create so much more, and we can do so much more, and we all benefit from that. So I love that you're living that in your business too.
Yeah.
Did you have anything to add, Esther? There was one more question.
Well, I think in terms of the warrior powders and launching the food-based business, I think it's almost like a renovation. Just allow yourself time, because it's always going to take longer than you think that it might. We had access to a lot of great consultants, but at the end of the day, when a certain few consultants couldn't answer specific questions, Bree read every single word of the Health Canada docs when it came to labeling laws, because you know, she lost that confidence in our particular consultant at the time. So, you know, be persistent, dog with a bone, like, and do not give up, and just allow yourself time, because it's going to take a lot of time. But I just trying to think of all the things, and just when you think you've arrived, right, then it's, oh, these particular symbols have to be a certain size on your package, and then they also have to have a certain background, and then so there were so many things that we just had to be fluid about and patient about, because things were evolving and things were changing. But we didn't see them as mistakes. We just saw all of them as opportunities, and they were getting us to exactly where we needed to be. But
just part of the process.
Totally. Yeah.
We hired a designer at one point that didn't work out. And, you know, there was definitely a lot of mistakes that we made along the way. But I think that you can learn from your mistakes, but truthfully, that's just what happens. I think you just want to try to mitigate how big your mistakes are, because truthfully, they're going to keep happening. You know, I think if you live in this world where you want to make sure everything you ever do, and it's kind of like part of my personality to want to do that. So I always have to step outside of my comfort zone, because like you want to get it right, or you want to, you know, you don't want to have any spelling errors, or like, you know, whatever it is.
I can attest there are 0 spelling errors.
Like this anal personality. But at the end of the day, you also have to grow quickly. And so I think it's finding this balance between, you know, wanting to put yourself out there, and yeah, you don't want to make a mistake, and you don't want to, you want to do it in a thoughtful way, but at the same time, if you're so held back because you're afraid of the mistakes that you're going to make, then you don't take action. And so you also always need to be in action, moving something forward, and then you're going to move something forward, make a thoughtful choice about it, and it's either going to work or it's not going to work. And if it doesn't work, you got to be able to pull the ripcord and move on to something else, move in a different direction. You know, sometimes we really pride ourselves on customer service, and sometimes we don't nail that out of the park, but it's like, you know, okay, so we made a mistake, now you just move forward. So it's like we've made so many mistakes along the way, but we couldn't even give you the advice to like not make all of the mistakes that we made, because part of us making those mistakes has made us move in the direction that we have moved. And so if we didn't make this mistake, we wouldn't have moved in this direction. You make a mistake on something, you're like, maybe we need a policy on this, or maybe we could improve in some way, or maybe we could do this differently. So it's like, you just have to really be in those conversations constantly and evolve from there. But start somewhere, just start somewhere, start with something that is going to make you money. Don't spin your wheels, and then adjust, and don't get too far down the road of not having a sense of how you're going to at least generate revenue in your business. You might not make a ton of money right away, but at least know that you have a plan for revenue generation. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really an important piece.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the very last question that we had that came in was, when can we expect your forthcoming book?
Good question. If anyone knows the answer to
please let us know. We're in the editing process now. And so we were promised it would be, from when we handed in the manuscript, it would be an 18-month process.
Yeah.
And initially we were like, 18 months, will it really take 18 months? But yeah, so we don't have a process. Final,
editing, graphic design, photography. We just created our creative brief, so that will go off to for the design team, so that will go off to them.
Let's explain that, because I think that part was super duper exciting, and I also know that's one of your superpowers is sort of steering the outcome. And so the creative brief that we put together was really encapsulated the feel and the look of our brand. But Bree, like we went to, can we share how we did it?
Of course.
Yeah. We went to a bookstore, and we just piled over a ton of different nutrition books and cookbooks. And if there was something, a design element that we loved about it, then we just took a photograph of it. And then Bree turned it into this incredible marketing piece so now when we meet with the creative designer, they have, this is what you're branding. These are the colors from the warrior food. So we're hoping to, to full circle with those particular colors. And these are the design elements that we really enjoy, because then the creative director really has a great understanding of where we're coming from. And then hopefully their job at that point will be a lot easier, because they're like they know exactly what they're looking for. And also these ideas are incredible. So let's go from here. And then we can help steer it more than let's just see what they come up with. And then there's a ton of back and forth, and then there goes another 6 months potentially. So that was really clever.
And they can still totally go rogue.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're hoping that by providing the guidance, it's not like they're starting from nothing. So they get a sense of, this is what our brand is all about. This is, the feeling, the emotion that we want to people to feel while they're reading it. And then hopefully that comes across in the design phase. But I mean, that's the other thing with publishing, is it is a balance, because you have the ability to have a creative opinion, but you don't really get the final say. Mm-hmm. And so you also, though, I think there's a piece of us that wants to have so much control over it. So that's hard to let go. But at the end of the day, we have a really fantastic editor. We love our editor. We're so glad we're with a really great publisher. Our publisher's amazing. Our editor's amazing. We've got lined up for our book, the award-winning creative designer right now. She's the current award winner. I don't know what they call it in that space anyway, in Canada. So we're excited about the team. And so if you trust in the team and you believe in that, then I think at some point too, you have to realize this is what they do. And they want the book to succeed and to sell just as much as we do. So you also have to take a little bit of a step back and just trust in the process.
Yeah.
All right, before we're coming up on an hour here together. So before we wrap up and get into the giveaway, is there anything that you're currently working on that you want to have folks plug into and follow along with your work if they would like to?
Well, they definitely can jump on our Facebook group if they're not there, because we do always update there. So I think that's the best place to stay updated. But yeah, I think our food powders, as I said, we're launching into the States, and we do have a few other things in the mill right now, but we get them ironed out before we announce them, make big announcements about them.
So that Facebook group, sorry, say that again.
We'll have to circle back with those.
Yes, of course. So that Facebook, for everyone who might not be familiar, is Little Warrior Nutrition, if you want to check them out there. It is a fabulous group if you're considering pregnancy at some point in your life, if you have little people in your life. It's really great information to be able to support those tiny humans that we know and love. So the last thing that we have for everyone watching and everyone who will be checking out the replay is a giveaway. So I have 2 of your warrior powders that you so nicely gifted. And so we have set up a giveaway. So there is a Google form. I'll ask Taya, I think is here in the background. I'll ask her to throw up the link to the Google form in the chat. So anyone who's here live is able to go there. It's just your name, your email address that you need to fill out for the giveaway. And we'll give until December 21st. So if you don't have a moment to do that right now, or for all the folks who'll be watching the replay, we'll do a draw just randomly on December 21st to give away those 2 warrior powders, with the caveat that you do need to be in Canada or the US for us to ship them to you. So we welcome everyone to click there because they are really excellent products, and get a little sneak peek, a first taste of those awesome powders. Okay. All right. So I think that's it. Is there anything else that you ladies want to share in wrapping up before I let everyone go?
I think one of the things that sometimes people ask about is partnerships. What are the benefits of partnerships versus working on your own? And I think I happed on Briana through co-op. It was a co-op that I was doing with the Naked Label, and through working together, we realized we work well together. And so it's a tricky one. I think for us, partnership works really, really well, because the things that I do well, she can focus on things that she's masterful at. And so I think, yeah, if you have someone in your life that then you can, it really helps to bounce ideas off of each other. And, so that, yeah, I feel like there's a lot of benefits. But just like partnership, it's a marriage. So you just really want to be careful in who you're committing to, that that person is also solid, and that person is also ethical, and that person is also aligned and authentic, and all of those things. So yeah, I think that was just one thing that came to mind, that we do get asked from time to time in terms of partnership versus working alone. But
I think that comes back to the point that you made, Briana, about feeling really confident in your team. Because none of us can do everything completely by ourselves. At some point, we're going to need to ask others for help. So whether that is in a partnership like the 2 of you, or in a broader team, I think it's really critical to make sure that you're just feeling so aligned with those folks, and that you've chosen well, and then giving those people the space to do what they do better than you, and being okay and happy to watch that.
So great.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on, ladies. This was a great hour, and we will post this up in the group later this week. So I'm excited to see everyone's reactions when they watch the replay.
Amazing.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Have a great week. Take care.